So you want to buy a weed farm, find a warehouse, hire some growers, wait for the plants to come in. But here's the strange part. Cannabis is one of the only agricultural crops on Earth where the product comes out of the ground, already worth more than gold per gram. And it's also the sector where billionaire investors, Wall Street funds, and even former governors are walking away ruined. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how that's possible, where the money in a cultivation operation actually comes from, why owning the most lucrative crop per square foot in legal agriculture guarantees absolutely nothing, and why a weed farm isn't really the business most people think it is. Weed farms come in 3 sizes. A boutique operation in Oklahoma runs you $250,000 to $500,000. A mid-sized indoor facility costs $2.5 to $4.5 million. And then there's the commercial tier, where the numbers start getting silly. A 20,000 square foot indoor build runs $8 to $10 million just to construct and equip. Arizona is home to the largest cannabis greenhouse complex in the United States. 300 acres of canopy under one operator. But the building is just the start. 2 more costs nobody warns you about. The first is the license. In New York, just the application alone runs $20,000 to $50,000 with zero guarantee. In Ohio, a Level I cultivator license costs $20,000 to apply, $180,000 once you're approved, plus $200,000 a year to renew. You're basically buying a lottery's permission to spend a few more million. The second is regulatory geography. Every U.S. state functions like a separate country. Cannabis is still federally illegal, so the product cannot cross state lines. California weed stays in California. Michigan weed stays in Michigan. That creates a patchwork of disconnected markets, each with its own price floor. Minnesota, which opened its adult use market in August 2024, has wholesale prices above $4,100 per pound because supply hasn't scaled yet. Oklahoma has so much oversupply that state regulators froze new growers' licenses entirely back in 2022. The same product, in the same country, costs 9 times more, depending on which side of an imaginary line it was grown on. It's the only industry in America where the IRS treats you like a drug cartel and the bank treats you worse. Now we get to the question that actually matters. Where does the money come from? Legal cannabis in the United States is a $40.7 billion market in 2024, generating $112.4 billion in total economic impact. Cultivation sits at the base of that pyramid, but the economics of growing are nothing like the economics of retail. The average wholesale price of American cannabis was around $1,180 per pound in 2025, down from $1,450 in 2024, down from over $2,000 in 2016. Every mature market follows the same chart. One direction, down. Michigan dropped from around $300 an ounce wholesale to roughly $225. At the extreme end, outdoor growers in Oregon have been selling flower to processors for as little as $50 a pound. $50 for a pound of a product that costs thousands to produce indoors. And here's the part that breaks people's brains. The cheapest weed in America often makes more money than the most expensive. A pound of indoor flower in California costs $400 to $800 to produce and sells for around $1,000 in saturated markets. The grower is barely breaking even. A pound of outdoor flower costs $200 to $300 to produce and sells for $650 to $750. The outdoor grower walks away with 40% margins, while the indoor operator next door is filing for protection. Why? Because indoor costs eat you alive. Sun is free, buildings aren't. The reason this keeps happening us in essence. Growing weed is easy. Growing high-quality weed at scale, inside the rules, with passing lab tests, is hard. But not so hard that thousands of people don't try at the same time. Prices start high. Everyone races to get licensed. Capacity explodes within 18 months. Supply blows past demand, prices collapse, growers go under. And then there's the detail that destroys every spreadsheet. IRS Code Section 280E. This is a federal tax rule that bars any business trafficking in a Schedule I substance from deducting normal operating expenses. Rent, payroll, electricity, lawyers, none of it. A normal U.S. business pays 21% federal tax on net income. A weed farm pays federal tax on gross income. Effective tax rates climb above 70%. Operators showing a profit on paper end the year cash flow negative. In December 2025, an executive order kicked off the rescheduling process toward Schedule 3, which would kill 280E and save the industry roughly $2.3 billion a year. Until the DEA finalizes the rule, the meat grinder keeps spinning. You're growing a plant the federal government considers more dangerous than cocaine, but legal in 38 states. Choose your zip code wisely. Now the operational piece. And this is where the industry gets genuinely strange. A modern indoor weed farm is an iPhone factory, with plants instead of chips. Temperature, humidity, CO2, light cycles, all controlled to the decimal. Industrial LED rooms pull energy on the scale of a small neighborhood. And the lights can't go off. Plants need 12 to 18 hours a day, every day. No exceptions. But the real trick of the industry is something most outsiders miss. Standalone cultivators get crushed. The only operators consistently making money are the ones who own everything from seed to shelf. Vertical integration. A grower who only sells wholesale gets whatever the market is paying that month, which lately is not much. A vertically integrated operator grows the plant, processes it, packages it under their own brand, and sells it through their own dispensaries. Same gram of weed, 3 or 4 margin captures stacked on top of each other. If you're just a grower, you're a price taker in a market designed to push the price toward your cost of production. Now, why do so many operators go bust? Almost every famous cannabis collapse fits one of 2 patterns. Mistake 1. Too much debt against a falling market. MedMen was once valued at over $2 billion and pitched itself as the Apple Store of weed. It went public in 2018. The stock more than doubled by year-end. The founders flew private. They opened flagship dispensaries in Venice Beach, just off the Las Vegas Strip, and on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, across from the old Lord & Taylor flagship. They pursued a $682 million merger with PharmaCann. They took on hundreds of millions in debt to fund it. By April 2024, the entire company filed for receivership. Shareholders got wiped out. The Apple Store of weed turned out to be a $2 billion bet that the federal government would change its mind faster than the cash burned. It didn't. Mistake 2. Wrong product, wrong market. Oklahoma had no real cultivation cap, so thousands of producers got licensed to serve a fraction of that demand. An ALMA Commission study found the state previously had 32 times more regulated cannabis than patients required. Retail flower dropped to roughly $2 and $1 per gram, the lowest in the country. Most cultivators were betting federal legalization would come fast and the surplus would flow out of state. It didn't. The state was forced to freeze new licenses entirely. Step back for a second. The economics of cannabis cultivation are paradoxical. The high wholesale price reflects regulatory friction, not operating margin. You can't borrow from regular banks. You can't advertise on mainstream platforms. You can't file Chapter 11 because the underlying activity is still federally illegal. Each one is a toll the cultivator pays in compressed margin. Time to pull it all together. 2 scenarios. Scenario 1. A boutique grow in Oklahoma. $300,000 in startup capital. Assuming you can even get a license. Annual revenue $800,000 to $1.2 million if you sell everything you produce. After costs, 280E and state fees, real profit lands between $100,000 and $200,000 a year. Payback in 2 to 4 years. Scenario 2. A commercial indoor in Michigan or New Jersey. $8 million in capital. Annual revenue $6 to $12 million. Net margin for well-run operators sits at 10% to 20% after 280E. That's $600,000 to $2.4 million in annual profit. Payback in 4 to 8 years. Assuming nothing goes sideways. Something always goes sideways. And here's the secret nobody in the industry will say out loud. A weed farm in 2026 isn't actually a farm. It's a leveraged bet that the federal government changes one paragraph of tax code in the next 24 months. Every operator still standing is running the clock, burning cash, waiting for rescheduling, hoping the lights stay on long enough to buy out competitors at pennies on the dollar when the math finally flips. These investors pouring money into a sector that's technically broken aren't buying the business that exists today. They're buying a call option on the business that might exist tomorrow. So if you do decide to buy a weed farm, remember the most important rule of this sector. The plant grows. The money doesn't always. Just make sure that when the tide turns, you're still the one with the lights on.